Hey everyone, this is Cameron from Renegade Animation on renegadepopculture.com. If you like what we do, please give us a like, a follow, and a rating on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to us. We are everywhere. Make sure to share out our episodes, and if you can, consider supporting our Patreon. That way, we can keep doing what we love piece by piece, and that's talking about the amazing, wonderful world of animation. And now, on with the show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Renegade Animation on the Renegade Pop Culture Podcast Network. My name is Mike. I'll be your host this evening. Joining me, as always, is the animation guru himself, Cameron.
Howdy, howdy.
And today's a pretty low-key episode. We're talking about two films that you absolutely should see. We have the Lego biopic of Pharrell Williams, Piece by Piece, and the adaptation of Look Back from Chainsaw Man creator Tatsuki Fujimoto. We'll start with Look Back because I'll just say this up front. This is probably the movie I have the least to say, but that doesn't mean it's any less worth your time.
Okay, so let's get this out of the way. This is based off of the one-shot manga by Tatsuki Fujimoto, who y'all, like we said, would know for Chainsaw Man. This one-shot manga took the manga and anime world by storm. It was beloved, critically acclaimed. Everyone loves it. And there was a lot of hype when an animated feature adaptation was happening that is written and directed by Kiyotaka Oshiyama for his directorial debut, and for Studio Durian, which this is their first full feature animation production. I looked them up. They're relatively new and have mostly done animation assistance on other projects. It's an understatement to say this was a hit in Japan. This was the indie darling that has been raking in money at Japan's box office. They're even re-releasing the movie, and if I recall, with an audio commentary with the director
Oh, that's
talking about
cool.
talking about the movie, the story and such. And it's a big deal. It's probably one of the most important movies, not just in the animation scene of this year, but of 2024. Popular outgoing Fujino is celebrated by her classmates for her funny comics in the newspaper. One day, her teacher asks her to share the space with Kiyomoto, a truant recluse whose beautiful artwork sparks a competitive fervor in Fujino. What starts as a jealousy transforms when Fujino realizes their shared passion for drawing. So, one thing to take note about this movie is it's 58 minutes long. It's barely an hour in runtime, which, to be fair, not every movie needs to be 2 hours or 90 minutes. One of my favorite movies from 2011, I think, was A Cat in Paris, and that's only 60 minutes. Everyone was kind of waiting who was going to get this movie. Was it going to be Crunchyroll and their ongoing game of being the only anime distributor in town? Was it going to be Netflix because they can just throw money at everything and get what they want, even if they have no interest in a proper theatrical release?
Of course not.
Or was it going to be the ever obvious G Kids? Because with them, when you hear about a movie, it's usually not if they will get it, but when they will announce that they've gotten it. And yeah, they picked up this movie and gave it a limited, though they also expanded the theatrical release of this movie. During theatrical screenings of the movie, they played an interview with the director, writer, and our two leads, who are Yumi Kawai and Mizuki Yoshida, who play Ayumu Fujino and Kiyomoto. And I feel kind of bad saying this because everyone is loving this movie. It's considered the best animated movie of the year. It's one of the best movies of the year. I think it is one of the best animated movies of the year and one of the best movies of 2024. I wouldn't call it my favorite animated movie of 2024. It's one of the best, but not my personal favorite.
Yeah, for me, it's sitting just outside my top 10 of the year overall. I do think it's very good. I pretty much agree with all of the praise that it's gotten. I think the only thing that's holding this movie back is I don't want to say it's the runtime because, like you said, not every movie needs to be 90 minutes, but it does kind of take a minute for you to really kind of get to the heart of why this story is so beloved.
Honestly, they could have made this a 90-minute movie. Maybe they weren't given the time and budget to do so, but this movie relies a whole lot on you engrossing yourself in this movie on an emotional level. This beautiful friendship between these two girls is the driving force and why you are going to fall in love with this movie. It starts, like the description says, as a bitter rivalry. Well, more of like a one-sided bitter rivalry until you find out that Kiyomoto is actually very much a huge fan of Ayumu's work, even though on a subjective level, Kiyomoto's artwork is 10 times better. But it doesn't become a full on story of competition and drive for Ayumi to beat Kiyomoto because she sees Kiyomoto as a rival at first. And then once they finally talk to one another, because Kiyomoto is a, how do they describe her? Agoraphobic truant student who does not leave her room in her house. And you find out as the story goes on that they help inspire one another and they push each other to make and do better with the art that they are crafting. And then we get to the middle part of the story where there is conflict, where Kiyomoto wants to, after they both win a competition to publish a or submit a manga to what is essentially Shonen Jump.
Yeah.
They don't say it's Shonen Jump, but it's Shonen Jump. And they make many successful one-off mangas. They get assigned to make a series, which it's called Shark Kick. And yeah, we all know if you watch anime, it's very much the Easter egg version of Chainsaw Man. And at this point, Kiyomoto wants to go to an art university to improve on her art, while Fujino wants to keep making manga because they're just going to get better because they push one another, they inspire each other, and they go off on their different paths. With Fujino making her popular Shark Kick series, while Kiyomoto is doing more traditional art. Until one day, a incident happens where a mass murder at the art college unfolds and Kiyomoto is confirmed to have died. And Fujino finds herself enwrapped by guilt because she was not there to help her or protect her. This is where a lot of the more emotional logic and storytelling comes into play. Because, spoilers, what we see unfolds is Fujino going to Kiyomoto's house and wondering what would have happened if that little 4-panel comic that she made long ago was not the same one she made. Would Kiyomoto have left her room or would something else have happened? And we see a pseudo alternate timeline where Fujino full on stops making manga and does martial arts and more athletic stuff, where Kiyomoto continues to work on her art and goes to the same art college that she goes into in the main timeline. And then there's where their paths meet, where Fujino does end up saving Kiyomoto and then promising one another that they should make manga together. It's a beautiful scene. It's heartbreaking. The acting from Yumi Kawai and Mizuki Yoshida are the driving force of this movie. They are so good.
They are incredible. A lot of so much of their friendship, like you buy into because of their performance. And it really is heartbreaking to see in between that alternate timeline, just seeing Fujino just completely overtaken by the guilt is broke my heart when I saw it.
It's like what could have been because she feels like it's her fault. If Kiyomoto did not leave her room, she wouldn't have died. I'm wondering if this was inspired by the Kyo Annie arson incident, where a mentally unwell man accused the creatives at Kyo Annie for plagiarism, and as you know, caused arson, killing a couple of members of the famous studio. I only wonder that because the killer is killing everyone at this art college because he sees some art online from this college that looks like his. I'm not saying that I needed more story to expand on this part, but this movie relies a whole lot on montages to build up the emotional swelling of beauty and of the story. But it feels like they could have paced it out a little more.
They could have maybe spent more time, say, for example, the day that the two friends went out for shopping or whatever they did.
Mostly just eating and hanging out.
That could have been expanded on more, or we could have seen more of the alternate timeline.
There should have been just more. There could have been more. And this reminds me of what was it? It was a Makoto Shinkai movie. Yeah, The Garden of Words, because that one's only about 48 minutes long. And there just could have been time there to make it longer and to expand on more of the story details. So I'm not saying that they rush through this. I mean, they kind of have to with the fact that they only have an hour to tell the whole story. And they do some smart moments. Like some of the montages do work. I'm not saying they all fail. It's more I wanted more time to spend with their friendship. And I liked the one montage at the beginning where Fujino gives up on art because in her drive to become better, she neglects her family, friends, and school, only to be like, you know what? I can't do it. No matter how good I am, I'm not going to beat Kiyomoto. So she, for the rest of her middle school days, does like martial arts, socializes, interacts with her family. A lot of that brought empathy and sympathy for Fujino to instead of treat Kiyomoto as a rival, but as a fellow artist, as they both lift each other up. The moment that they break up as a duo, you really feel the heartbreak between them.
Mm-hmm.
Fujino is heartbroken because she wants to keep making manga without them having to go do more school or whatever. But Kiyomoto is driven by the fact that while she is a very good artist, she like Fujino is an artist that she inspires to be. Because spoilers, you find out that Fujino Kiyomoto has like even though it's been years apart, Kiyomoto has been keeping track of how Fujino has been, and with her popular Shark Kick comic or manga, it's beautiful because Fujino was about to just say like I'm not doing art anymore, just I can't. But she takes Kiyomoto's one comic, like little 4 panel comic that she made, decides to put it above her workbench to keep her going, to keep the drive and the love of creating alive. I can understand why some people cried at the end. It's an emotionally powerful movie. I just hate that I caught what was going to happen. And I think this is because a lot of movies about these kind of tragic friendships tend to do this. Like, I hate that I caught that she was going to get like Kiyomoto was going to get murdered. I hate that I caught that, and that hurt me with how I was experiencing the rest of the movie, because then I knew what was going to happen.
Did you start to get the red flags as soon as they broke up as a duo when Kiyomoto went to college?
Yeah, I was hoping that they wouldn't go down this route. I was thinking that they would meet each other again years later, but they didn't. And only for Fujino to finally try to like attempt to reconcile with the fact that Kiyomoto died. Like I said, I feel bad for not saying this is my favorite movie of the year. I just really wanted this to be longer because the animation is gorgeous, just beautiful, fluid line work. It reminds me a lot of how Science Staru does a lot of their animation at points.
I was getting Science Saru vibes with this too. And speaking only for myself, when I say that, oh, I wish this movie was longer, it's almost a good problem to have because it means I am invested in these characters, in the friendship, in the story that to have.
Like, it's a good story. We're not saying it's a bad movie or a,
We wanted more.
yeah, I wanted more. I wanted to see more, but, and maybe I'm wrong, but it looks like this was a very small team of animators if the Anime News Network entry for the film is to be had. But even then, when I saw the credits, I noticed that it was a very small team. It reminds me of Ongaku R Sound in that regards, in terms of a small crew, but incredible talent and passion to bring this story to life. And the way that they interpret the emotional mood of the characters through the environment was lovely. I like the rest of the cast. It's tough when Mizuki Yoshida and Yumi Kawai are so good that they eclipse everyone else.
I think that's fair to say. Like it's because they take up so much of the center of gravity where everyone else is they're playing their part, but they really just are the focus of the story.
It's a great movie. I fully understand why people love this. And I'm not saying it's overrated or overhyped either. That's just childish behavior. It's more, it's really good, but it's hard for me to say I would rank it above other films like Sirocco, The Imaginary, Chicken for Linda, Memoir of a Snail, Ultraman Rising, The Wild Robots, or Mars Express. It's honestly fighting with Piece by Piece for a rank in my top 10, which is then filled out by Inside Out 2. It's going to be interesting to see how I feel about this movie compared to The Colors Within and Ghost Cat Anzu when I see them later this week as of recording podcast. Who knows when G Kids is allowed to let this get released? I'm sure they're going to try to get it out as fast as possible. It's just sometimes, these studio deals, like when they bring over these movies, they have to follow protocol, which is beyond frustrating at points because sometimes you'll be waiting up to a year or even 2 years.
Hopefully it's not that long.
No, that's what happened with A Silent Voice. It took bloody forever, and I don't know why. It was amazing. Or The Big Bad Fox and Other Tales was another one where it's like it took a whole year just to finally get a release in the US and then a whole other year to get on Blu-ray. It's just like, man, I don't know what happened there. But yeah, if you can find a way to watch this movie or if they do like surprise expand screenings, give it a watch. So it's really good. Just go check this movie out.
Yes.
But now we shall talk about one of the more distinct music biopics of 2024, which is funny because you wouldn't think that would be a genre or a category of its own this year, but it is, where we will talk about Piece by Piece by Morgan Neville, who did Won't You Be My Neighbor, and the Roadrunner, the film about Anthony Bourdain, among many other documentaries and what have you. It's a vibrant journey through the life of cultural icon Pharrell Williams, told through the lens of Lego animation. It's so interesting how we have this, and I think it's called A Better Man. No, A
It
Better Man's the Sebastian Stan movie.
it's just called Better Man, and it's so bizarre. It's a biopic about Robbie Williams, but he is a CGI monkey.
Yeah, so it's quite an odd and interesting year for music biopics or documentaries about musicians and their lives. It's funny how Better Man got such a polarizing response at Fantastic Fest because I think a lot of people were expecting Nosferatu or something to play at the mystery screening, but then Better Man was the one that happened instead. And so many people in the Fantastic Fest Facebook group were complaining about this movie, which I'm like, I don't know, man, that looks really cool. And it looked like it fit perfectly within what Fantastic Fest is all about. So beats me that y'all overhyped yourselves on a possible not happening screening. Sorry, sometimes I think people at Fantastic Fest who go to it are really weirdly entitled. But anyway, let's talk about Piece by Piece. I want to start with this question. This movie is animated in the same vein of the Lego movies. Lego movie 1, 2, Batman, Ninjago, and it's animated in a way where there's still like a tactile feel and weight to how the Legos move. It's not just, oh, they look like Legos, but we can move them around like they aren't. This is in that realm of how they animated this whole thing. It's a more, I mean, it has such a vibrant imagination, but it still feels like a more grounded story or
Hmm.
approach to how they visually represented what was going on through the life of Pharrell.
I was kind of surprised when I learned that the budget was only 16 million. But then it does kind of make sense because outside of the admittedly gorgeous Lego animation, this is still a rather traditional talking head documentary.
My question is, would you have loved this movie the same if it wasn't animated like this, if it wasn't presented like it was with this animated feature visual look? Like, does it stand on its own as a documentary without the Lego aspect?
That's actually kind of a tough question because I personally think Pharrell's story, just like his background and everything, would have been interesting enough because the way Morgan Neville tells his stories, his documentaries, they always are presented in a way that's like very compelling. But I also have to admit, the Lego aspect is something that's very unique to Pharrell and one of like the best ways to capture synesthesia in film.
Exactly. Like, on a whole, as a documentary, it's not too different. It's not going to dive super deep into the problems or the down parts of Pharrell's life. It's not going to dive into the later aspects of his life or the more current stuff. It pretty much ends with the Kendrick Lamar Pharrell collaboration of "We're going to be all right." I think that's fine. Like I think we're at like a turning point of what kind of story do we want from documentaries now? Because I think people don't want just a straight retelling of events through the possible bias skew of its focus, because Pharrell is still very much alive. So
Hmm.
he's going to make sure that the documentary is going to go his way. And I'm not saying that as a bad thing. It's just, it's what's going to happen. And it's not like if this was a normal movie, this wouldn't have gone through the same issues as stuff like Bohemian Rhapsody, where the living band members of Queen had obviously way more to say of how the story portrayed each other. Here, it's mostly the focus is less on the life of Pharrell and more about Pharrell's upbringing and his creative oeuvre of how he approached music. Because Pharrell is, once again, way more interesting of an artist to learn about and to probably talk to than most musicians that live today, because of just how prolific his collaboration work with the, like, as part of the Neptunes, his band NERDS, and his solo work went. I think that's a lot of fun with how they portray the musical inspiration for what Pharrell was going through.
That's all the stuff that a lot of his early childhood stuff is things like I wasn't totally familiar with, but just seeing the way it's presented in this format was honestly kind of a breath of fresh air compared to other documentaries or even other biopics that just kind of this just felt more lively.
It had more fun with its premise than I think most documentaries are ever going to do. There's a reason why I really still love the Jiro Dreams of Sushi and Ramen Heads documentaries, where I have no real urge to go back and watch many of these. And I had a lot of fun with Piece by Piece as a viewing experience to see how they would approach the visual medium of animation with the Legos and how they recreated the iconic moments in music videos that Pharrell had a hand in with the hit single from them. You have to keep yourself at a distance because of how funny it is that a lot of these music videos have like explicitly sexually charged to them, but everyone's a freaking Lego. So, I mean, granted, we did see some idiots online kind of out themselves with being upset of how a re-released Princess Leia Lego had more clothing on it. And God, so those people are just flipping idiots, man. I swear to God. So it was just funny to see all these iconic music videos recreated with Lego characters, animated in these faux stop motion way of the Lego movies.
I think one of the funniest sight gags that kind of went unnoticed when they bring up Snoop Dogg and how they came up with Drop It Like It's Hot. They sprayed PG spray.
Oh, that was funny. That was so funny. There are so many subtle jokes in this documentary. Like when Pharrell is watching Star Trek and you see Spock do live long and prosper with the hand symbol, but it's obviously like a Lego human hand. And when he looks at his own hand, it's like, wait a minute, how does he do that? It's a very funny documentary. And I think that's because a lot of these people know whatever they are outside of this documentary and how they are represented. Everyone was having more fun talking about this until they hit the point where Pharrell hit his, I guess, creative bankrupt arc, where the drive of where he was not where he wanted to be. He wanted to not be put in a box. He wanted to do everything, fashion or like drinks or like, what was it? Like facial cream and such. He wanted to do everything. And then after his grandmother passed, he was like, I'm going to do everything else. I'm going to make all these pop songs. When even, oh, which one was it? Pusha T
Yeah.
admitted that his worst song was during that downtime period with Pharrell. And Pharrell was more turning into, oh, we need someone to make a lovey-dovey pop song for this new female artist. We'll bring you in for that. It's like, no, what makes Pharrell distinct was he made music, as the documentary reenactments on like show. What made Pharrell distinct was he wasn't just wanting to be one type of artist. He wanted to be an artist with an emphasized meaning to artist. It's really compelling with how he presented himself and the effect that his music had on everyone.
And by
Oh, go ahead.
everyone, you pretty much everyone. You just Google the Neptunes in like the 2000s, you'll just see a bunch of songs and be like, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh, I love that song.
You won't realize how much of a hand he's had in so much stuff until it's brought to you, because I was like, oh, that makes sense. He worked on that song or this one and such. Like he worked with Gwen Stefani, Busta Rhymes, Snoop Dogg, Jay-Z, like so many amazing artists. I think what's so fun about the way they go about what the story is, even though they do have a moment where they talk, yeah, this was Pharrell's lowest point where he was just making the worst stuff of his career. It's interesting that they glance over some of the stuff like the Man of the Woods Justin Timberlake album, or it's musically mentioned and it plays a little bit of it, but the Robin Thicke Blurred Lines, which he and I think the other collaborator of that song were the only ones to get out of that scot free.
Yeah.
Because of just everything that was about to erupt with Robin Thicke at that point in time. Then they just show like, yeah, he had creative burnout. He was needing to bring back the pureness of his soul. And then that's how we got the amazing collaboration he did with Daft Punk. And then obviously his rise to fame again with the Despicable Me 2 song, Happy. And how that one song then blew up into how, like he says in the documentary, it did not become my song anymore after everyone else got a hold of it, and how they interpreted the lyrics of the song and what it meant to them. And yeah, maybe I kind of wish that they did that a few more times. Some of these songs are super important.
Hmm.
Yeah, I guess people wanted more of a story with this like movie, because even though it's a documentary, it has a relatively straightforward music biopic story structure. But I'm kind of fine with it wrapping up as it did, and how even though there are troubles in the world, like of course rise up to it and deal with them, but also we're going to be all right. I love that whole sequence with Kendrick Lamar. It just shows like, man, I really do like Kendrick Lamar and Pharrell Williams as artists. And I will say though, even though they do a lot of things like bleep out some curse words and of course the PG spray, I don't think this movie was ever meant for actual kids.
No, I commend the attempt to, and Pharrell said this in a bunch of interviews. He said he wanted to make this movie for everyone. This could have maybe been a PG-13 only because of some of the artists involved and the lyrical content of a lot of these songs from especially the 2000s.
Well, it's just funny because they'll bleep out some curse words and then at the end they won't bleep out the same word. It makes you wonder, was there some kind of conflict of interest with who this was going to be made for? Because I went to this movie twice. Adults reacted to this one way more than the kids, because I just think kids don't know who Pharrell is unless you tell them, yeah, he's the guy who did Happy for Despicable Me too. Even though it's like Pharrell is just one of those great artists, no matter if it's hip hop, rap, or whatever. But I just don't think kids were going to know who he was. I mean, I don't know. I don't know who kids like what kids listen to. I don't know if they are as entrenched with pop stars as like the adults are, or if they've listened to like Pharrell's older collaborations and such. Or I'm sure it was a little weird to be like for these kids to watch the more sexually explicit music videos and to be like, why are all these Legos being sexy?
I'll admit, I'm kind of jealous you even had people in your theater. When I saw this, I was the only one.
Oh, that sucks. I think maybe that it's a shame that this movie isn't doing better. I mean, I hear it's doing pretty decently. Like apparently this past weekend's box office, five or so of the top 10 were animated movies. So I think people are really coming out for something different. And if we want to treat animation as a medium of storytelling, then this is the way to do it, to use animation to tell a story like this as a documentary, which is relatively unique. It's refreshing. So I'm wondering if this will try to double dip into best animated feature and best documentary at the Oscars with maybe a best original song with Piece by Piece.
I hope so. Now that I've actually had a chance to see this, I am like actively rooting for this to gain some more critical acclaim and if nothing else, say it misses both animated feature and documentary. I would love if Piece by Piece at least got into Best Original Song because the original music that Pharrell wrote for this movie is incredible.
The musical sequences are great, and not just from the hit pop songs that he helped write and create. It's really good music. I think some of Pharrell's better music from his return era of getting back in the spotlight and such. I think it's really catchy, and I loved Piece by Piece. And I love the song that played during the church sequence. Just very powerful gospel music. And I love the visual symbolism of, oh, he grew up in Atlanta or near Atlantis, which was the name of the project, but the movie still used the visual medium of him in the underwater world of Atlantis. And like at points, like there's just so many cool visual and dialogue bits that just help accentuate the experience. I love the line of when he's talking with his pastor because of Pharrell being at a crossroads with Future Records and how they were not going to let him make his own music at the time. And his pastor says, listen, when you're at the bottom of a mountain, can you see what's on the other side? And it's like, of course you can't. But now you have that drive to figure out what is on the other side, or however that quote went. It was really good stuff.
Hmm.
And even though I don't think Pharrell is a phenomenal actor, I did like his more calm vibe as he talked about all the different parts of his life. Like I thought everyone felt very normal and casual about this. And
And that's actually kind of the secret because I watched another interview where Pharrell admitted that none of the other people that Morgan Neville talked to knew that this was going to be a Lego movie. They were just kind of treating this like a regular documentary.
I thought it was really funny where Snoop Dogg was talking about how he was trying to call Pharrell. And he's like, yeah, I just wanted to ask him what he wants me to lie about. Like, golly, man. I love little moments like that in the movie, or like when they're doing the meeting with Snoop Dogg and Pharrell was just like, yeah, dude, 6 foot tall, and he's around other 6 foot crypt members, and just how they accentuate that with the way that they give like the little like Snoop Dogg and his gang like little squares to make them taller, but just how Pharrell described what it was like talking to them. Be like, have you ever seen fog when it's like really low to the ground and the buildings are like standing upwards? like above the fog. It's like that. It's such a visually distinct and very refreshing take of the documentary. And listen, I'm not going to say I disagree with the mixed responses I've seen from other critics. I get it. But I feel like I don't want to say you can't criticize it because it's doing something different. In some regards, because it's doing something different, you should be more vocal about what it could have done better. But I wasn't really grading this on a major curve or anything like that, where it's like, it's a good documentary, it's a good animated feature, and I think it's a good movie overall. And it just so happens to be a documentary that's fully animated.
That's kind of where I'm at. And for me, when it comes to documentaries, I don't seek them out as off as traditional narrative features unless I'm like genuinely into the subject. This one had something unique going for it, which is why it had my attention. I will say I understand where a lot of the criticisms are coming from. If I wasn't as into Pharrell's music, I would probably feel the same way. But since I am, I thought the mixed media of Lego animation and the new like the original music all came together nicely. I personally think that this is a great movie.
I will say it is interesting with how they tried to have it both ways. They wanted it to be a sort of music biopic, but it was mostly a documentary, and how they brought in other actors. I feel like they did bring in some actors to fill out the more just narrative bits of the movie. A lot of the collaborators were there, like Snoop Dogg, Gwen Stefani, Timberland, Kendrick Lamar, this small bit with Justin Timberlake, Busta Rhymes, and Morgan Neville. But I'm wondering who they got for like the second, like the minor roles, police women, or just anyone who wasn't like the major names that they had to talk about
Now
and
that is a good
such.
question.
I did very much like this movie. I would love it to do better at the box office, and I think it will. The box office is in a weird spot right now because, well, this came out the same week as Terrifier 3, at least in wide release. And it's the box office is full, like it has some movies that are like the big studio entries, but other films that are from the major studios are not doing well right now, especially with ones like Joker 2 and Megapolis and what have you. It's going to be interesting to see if this film has like a steady increase of viewers in box office, or if, Universal, through their focus features line, are going to just put it on streaming by the end of the month or a little into December or November or whatever.
Hmm.
Like, I would hope that this would pick up more, but maybe if it, because it's a documentary, people aren't enthralled to go out or enticed to go out to the theaters, because they used to play a lot of documentaries in theaters, and they quite haven't gone back to doing so because most of them have been going direct to streaming, which means that they'll have the bigger audience if they, once they hit Hulu, Netflix, or Disney Plus and such. Like, which is a shame, but I also get it. Not all the documentaries I've seen were particularly good documentaries. And but I would like for this one to do better. And not just because it's an animated movie. It's just I think it's a delightful experience. And even though it has some mild cursing and it's a little more adult in tone, I think kids can at least respect and get some of the quotes and dialogue that is said to them. But it was just kind of interesting to walk out of it today, and the mom was talking to her kid, and the kid was not as like enthusiastic about the movie, but the mom loved it. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But since it's still in theaters as of right now, I'd recommend going to see it.
Same. I think between this and Superman, the Christopher Reeve story. Those are two documentaries that I genuinely loved seeing in theaters. And Piece by Piece is probably the more cinematic experience. If you have to choose between the two, I would not be surprised if you chose that one. But what a week it's been for the box office. A lot of different options. As we brought up before, five out of the top 10 were animated. That's cool. Something you don't get to see often.
And I hope the Animation Guild takes that and weaponizes it against the studios because they need to do that so much more because the studios aren't going to play nice. They're going to play dirty. And I think it's time for the Animation Guild, because they're still doing negotiations right now, to use this against them. Because, like, what are the biggest hits of this week so far? Five of them are animated movies. What's one of the biggest failures of this year so far? The Joker 2, a live action movie starring a straight white guy who, I mean, I don't want to go into Joker 2. That movie sucked. I'm sorry to those who liked it. I have a lot more I could say about it, but that's not for this podcast. So, right now, a lot of live action films are looking like the bigger failures, while animation continues to carry the box office like it did last year and other years before, even during the pandemic. Some of the most watched movies were animated movies. So, like, use this opportunity, weaponize it, play as fair as you can, but use this momentum of animation against whatever studios want to try to do to prevent more damage like that they are causing by diluting the medium of animation. They need it right now. They need that win.
They absolutely do.
I know, like, DreamWorks is celebrating its 30th anniversary this year, and listen, I loved Wild Robot, still love it. It's hard to feel like it's worth celebrating when they laid off basically their entire animation team just to try to save a few pennies.
So that's another piece they should use as leverage. Like, look at the sequel that was announced. It would be great if we had better contracts so we can make the best movie ever.
Instead of just, you need all those people that made that movie because, yeah, the Wild Robots, Transformers 1, like, I love animation, man. I mean, yeah, we do this podcast for this reason, but it's constantly frustrating how animation is becoming the studio's scapegoat for everything, and they're just going to try to BS their way out of treating their animators better. How much more can they do that without and rely on nonsense like live action and reality TV saving their hides? Because that's what's going on right now, and it's frustrating. But anyway, go see Piece by Piece. I hope the Animation Guild weaponizes the current victory that they're going through, right? Like, that the box office is going through with 4 or 5 animated films are conquering right now.
Including a re-release that was not announced, that was not like marketed. They just kind of put it out in theaters and it made like $2.4 million.
Yeah, so it's just like animation is bankable. It's been constantly bankable. So I don't know what's going on with these stupid companies and such. That's it for this episode. Next time we will be talking about our supernatural pseudo Halloween episode. So we'll get to that when we can.
And until next time, Cameron, where can everyone find you online?
You can find me on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and Threads at Cam's Eye View. I have my own website called camseyeview.biz where I review animated films and shows from around the world called The Other Side of Animation. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/camseyeview. That's where you can find me.
And you guys can find me on various social media sites at Captain K42. You can check out my quick thoughts on letterboxd.com/CoachK42. And you can follow Renegade Pop Culture on Facebook and that place at Ren Pop Culture. You can also find us on YouTube, on Podchaser. Consider supporting our Patreon at patreon.com/Renegade Pop Culture. Listen to all of our podcasts on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. And last but not least, everything can be found at renegadepopculture.com. You need to escape, so do we. That'll do it for this episode of Renegade Animation. We will catch you guys later. Peace out.